For this position
Right.
today, we are doing third base. Let's get to the tiers now. So we have the tiers, and then we'll give you the exact top 10 to close it out. So let's start with the tiers. Your third base tiers. Again, we have the God tier, the consistent studs, the potential first rounders, and then the
Yeah,
old.
I changed the
You
names a little
changed the
bit.
last one. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm looking at. Jeez. Okay. Well, you
The old
messed
and
me
the
up. All
new.
right.
Yeah, no, I'm
The
sorry.
old
Well,
and the new.
because sometimes, tier
No, I
2
get you.
in one
There's different.
position
Yeah, I got
has
you. So let's start with tier one, the God tier. Bring it home. I just want to hear you say it.
it's easy. Jose Ramirez, J Ram, the God. We talked about him. We don't have to go any deeper into him.
Yeah, we did.
Take him first round, easy. Because last year he was a top 3 pick. I don't know what happened, right? I mean, he was a stud.
Yep.
But anyways, yeah, God tier, Jose Ramirez. Tier 2, I have consistent studs of Austin Riley / Rafael Devers. You know what you're gonna get from him.
I have
They're
a great
studs.
Rafael Devers story. So I was sitting right behind the Yankees dugout in his rookie year. Aroldis Chapman comes into the game. It was Luis Severino's first start, I'm pretty sure, his major league debut. You could look this up if it was just all one game or if I'm confusing multiple games. But I guess it was 2016, and Devers hit a game-tying home run off of Chapman, lefty against lefty, into the bullpen in left field. So it was the visiting bullpen in Yankee Stadium. And I remember sitting on top of the Yankee dugout, and I saw when he made contact, it looked like he was late on it. He was late on a fastball from Chapman. I'm like, there's no way. That's a fly out, whatever. And the ball just kept going and going. And the way the guy has just so much power, he was late on a Chapman fastball and just kind of flicked it the other way to left field. And it hit into one of the deepest parts of the ballpark, that gap in left field, Yankee Stadium, landed in the visiting Boston bullpen. And I was like, oh my God. And that tied the game. Yankees lost in extra innings. It was crazy. My grandmother also, after the ninth inning, she's like, all right, you ready to go? I was like, she's like, it's 9 innings. I'm like, it's tied. We're going to extras. It was wild. But yeah. So yeah, but that's I was like, I freaking love that guy, Rafael Devers. I'm shocked that he signed long-term with the Red Sox, because they trade Mookie, which is the worst trade ever. They obviously don't bring back Xander Bogaerts. And it's like, yeah, but we're going to sign Rafael Devers. Yeah, one of the best. And Austin Riley has come on as, again, that lineup is so stacked. You could look at him, obviously Olsen, and obviously, like, who is the best amongst them? There's just it's one after the other. And Austin Riley almost is a little bit under the radar in that lineup, how good his numbers actually are, because he's in a lineup with Acuna and Olsen and everyone else and whoever else is in that lineup, because there's just so many freaking guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's like I could talk about that lineup for day. I love every player in that lineup is just phenomenal. I mean, Michael Harris, Ozzy Albies,
Michael Harris. Yep, there you go.
So yeah, that's huge. So then tier 3, I have potential first rounders is what I titled it. I have Ellie De La Cruz, Royce Lewis, and then I put Gunnar Henderson in there. I don't think he's a potential first rounder, but he's definitely a potential second rounder. So I put him in tier 3 as well. Tier 4,
I love Gunnar, by the way. I think Gunnar fantastic. Yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, we can talk about him in a second. Yeah, and then tier 4, I titled it the old and the new, because you kind of have some old guys and some new guys that we're not really sure what direction they're going to take, but I think we can expect pretty average contributions across the board. And those 4 that I put in here are Manny Machado, Alex Bregman, Josh Jung, and Noelvi Marte. So a couple young guys with Jung and Noelvi, and then a couple old guys with Machado and Bregman.
Is Bregman a safe play because you know where you're going to get out of him, or do you not like him because you always expect just a little bit more from him?
No, as long as you know what you're getting out of Bregman, I think he's a safe play. And I think, especially if you play in an OBP league, I think he's an extremely safe play. If he's in an OBP league, he has a case to be the best out of this group. Again, those counting stats that we mentioned sometimes are ignored. He's going to get them in such a good Houston lineup. He's going to get on base, and he's kind of like perfected the home run swing. Like they have that short porch out there.
Short portion left. Yep.
And he's like, he hooks his home runs right around. Like he's just perfected it. So yeah, I do think he's a safe play.
So we already talked about Machado, because that was such an interesting one to me, where I didn't even know the alternate year thing. But anyone else you want to hit on before you give us your top 10 and we wrap up?
There was a couple guys I just wanted to mention that I meant to mention earlier. A few late guys that I think are extremely interesting, and I want to get your take on the second one. The first one is Matt Chapman, right? I think it depends on where he signs, but he is definitely like a guy that could be hot, could be cold, could be a little bit of both.
I'd
Could
love
be
to
a
see the
guy
Mets
that you,
sign him.
yeah, that'd be a good one. I mean, Brett Beatty would be totally blocked, but we'll
Brett
see.
Beatty. I mean, but what are you really expecting from Brett Beatty at this point?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. He's at this
Met fans
time
have totally
last
turned
year.
on him. I mean,
Yeah.
again, just from listening to the callers at the radio station, they were dying for Justin Turner. They
Hmm.
just want anyone to play third base that's not Brett Beatty or even DH. It's like, oh well, Beatty's going to DH because he can't play third, so we already have a third baseman. He's going to be. They want someone. They take Gio Urshela over him.
Wow. See, that's why, as a Cubs fan, I would love to have Brett Beatty at third base right now because we have a pretty big hole there. That's kind of interesting. Maybe we should have done a little more on him, but don't have much on him now. So Matt Chapman was one. Depends a little bit on his landing spot, but either way, at pick 274, I think that's a pretty good price. And the last one, this is where I want to get your opinion too. I have DJ LeMahieu as kind of like a deep sleeper. He's going to lead off for the Yankees, who just added quite a few guys. Maybe they're not done. I've heard their name connected to Snell quite a bit today. Not that that matters for him, but what are your thoughts on DJ LeMahieu?
It's funny because they always say, look at the back of his baseball card. That's like Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone's big like talking point, and it drives me insane because the back of the baseball card shows a steady decline for the last 3 years since you signed into that contract. And look, before he signed that contract at the Yankees, it was a steal, right? 6 years, $15 million a year. It felt like a steal because he was the batting average champion for like 3 years in a row. But the second half of last year, he was really good, and he came in last year to camp looking just big and lumbering and slow. And it was like, it just felt like this guy just got old so fast. And with a guy who's not going to have a ton of power, a guy who's not going to steal bases because he's slow, it just felt like, what's the value with him? But now, this after the second half of last year, where all of a sudden he just gained this speed, and I hear from guys who I'm friendly with, like Justin Shackle and Brian Hoke, who are down there at Yankee camp, and say he looks slimmer, he looks quicker, he looks like he has a little bit more pep in his step. And that doesn't matter if he's not going to steal bases; he's still not going to steal bases. But if he leads off, and they want him to lead off, that's the goal right now. If you hear from the Yankees, you hear from Boone, Cashman, they want DJ LeMahieu to be the leadoff guy. If he can get back to the DJ LeMahieu who's getting on base 35% of the time, 36% of the time, batting close to 300, if he could get back to that, that's all you need for him to score 120 runs with Judge and Soto behind him, maybe a little bit of a resurgence of Rizzo. I already told you I think Gleyber is going to have a monster year in a contract year. So is it a risk? Sure, because you already know he's not going to give you a ton of home runs. He's not going to give you stolen bases. He's probably not going to drive in a ton of runs. But if you think he could get back to that on base level, he could end up scoring a ton of runs and be a guy who is scoring a ton of runs and has a high on base percentage. And those are good guys to have at the back end of the draft, especially.
Well, and he's one, I mean, it's a deeper, he is, according to the drafts that have started, they started in October. He's currently going at pick 450. So when you're talking that late, it's either the guy that you just kind of keep your eye on the waiver wire, or that you,
You're
again,
throwing crap at the wall and seeing what sticks,
yeah. And I see the potential for him to score 100 runs and have a decent average, especially if he's going to be leading off. So again, I'm not all in on DJ LeMahieu, but it's just like an interesting one that I thought would be fun to point out.
Yeah, fun. Definitely fun to point out. All right. So who is your top 10? Go 10-1, your top 10 third baseman going into 2024 for the fantasy season.
10-1. Should I start in the backside or go?
Yeah, let's go 10-1.
All right. So 10th, I have Noelvi Marte. 9th, I have Josh Jung. 8th, I have Alex Bregman. 7, I have Manny Machado. 6, I have Royce Lewis. 5, I have Gunnar Henderson. 4, Ellie De La Cruz. 3, Rafael Devers. 2, Austin Riley. And 1, obviously, Jose Ramirez.
Can you do a minute on Ellie De La Cruz? What do you why are you so high on him this year?
I could do 25 minutes on Ellie. Ellie is such a difficult one for me right now. So I have quite a few shares in Dynasty, and I'm psyched about that redraft. And this upcoming year is a little bit more difficult to prove as to why he maybe deserves a 4 ranking. The only reason why I will say he does is because he's going to give you speed, right? I mean, we've seen that. He hits the ball extremely hard, which I love. He's in a great ballpark on a great team that's going to score a lot of runs. And it feels like he is like one of the centerpieces of that team. You know, him, Matt McLean, Noelvi Marte, CES. Like there's a new youth movement, and it feels like he is like one of the cornerstones for it. And so I'm betting on a breakout. I don't know necessarily that I'm willing to pay some of the prices. Let's see where he's going. He's currently going at 23. I don't know if I'm ready to pay that price, unfortunately, but if we're talking closer to 30, maybe I'm jumping in. I'm probably going in around pick 30. But there is a very real chance that he hits 240 and maybe some of the power isn't fully developed. But at the very least, you're going to get some speed. You're going to get quite a few runs, some RBIs as well. It sounds like he's going to hit towards the top. So I would expect 100 runs probably at least. 30 steals at least. I would say 30. He is a guy, if Ellie De La Cruz went 30-50 this year, I would not be shocked. Would not be shocked at all.